Welcome everyone to our first PCA talk of fall 2020. We have today Véronique Vienne that we are very happy to have back to PCA. She have been teaching at PCA for years, and sometimes she's still here to give some workshops or doing some intervention in some classes or as thesis advisor. Véronique Vienne, for those who don't know her, she has been art director for several years for magazines and fashion magazines in the United States, and her main activity now is writing. She's a writer and a critic of design. She's also collaborating with several firms and in communication. And tonight she will talk about citizen designer. Taking inspiration from the book, the second edition of the book that was released last year, Citizen Designer, that she co-wrote with Stephen Heller. She will talk about design and social responsibility in large scope. Welcome, and I let Véronique just to share her screen, or if you want to say something before sharing your screen. And
how do I click on my screen?
You can click on share the screen if you are ready to start the talk.
I can.
So for everyone, please, when you arrive, mute yourself so we don't hear any kind of strange noise.
Okay, and share screen. How can I show my face before I share the screen?
You are on the screen now. Everyone is looking at you. Yes.
Okay, I can talk a little bit before that. And thank you for inviting me to this talk and to be one of the first one to try the format. I hope I'll honor your trust in me. I am going to talk to you about a topic that interests me very much, that I've been working on for years, since it was in 2003 that I wrote this book in Citizen Designer with Stephen Heller, and second edition in 2018. So I'm supposed to be an expert. Of course, I'm as overwhelmed by the topic as anybody else. But I prepared a presentation. I'm going to now share the screen. I hope it works. A presentation, and I decided, here it is. Do you see it as full screen?
Yes, we do it. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, yeah, if you can see it. I decided to make a choice and to be practical and to ask the question, as a designer today, how can you use your skill? Can you use your skill to make a difference in the world? Is it even possible? Design was not created to make a difference in the world, not really. And now we find ourselves wanting to act and be responsible, and maybe the skills we have are not really the best for that purpose. Okay, I don't know how this is going to work. How do I go to the next screen? There must be a way. Oh, okay, good. I don't know if you see the entire screen, but what I'm showing on this screen is the first cover of the book, first edition, 2003, where we shows for the image the power of the hand, how designers contribute to society in a meaningful, responsible fashion. And we had chosen this image, which is a very, not terribly original, I must say, with handwriting for the title. I don't know if you see the whole title, the first edition. And
yeah, we can see.
You can see it, okay, because mine is slightly, and I want to talk to you about the raised fist, which is a powerful universal symbol, most often used to convey the idea of dissent and also of commitment to social justice. It is a defiant graphic image that works as a sign to support many of the causes on the spectrum. And this is one of the problems with that raised fist, is that it's a very powerful image. At the same time, it's used by everybody and their cousin. I have to learn to use this screen, excuse me. So I want to show you just for fun, images at the service of propaganda, how the raised fist was put right from the beginning at the service of propaganda. And we all know this, we can do it, Rosie the River poster, which inspired Just Do It by Nike, and Yes We Can with Obama. So powerful, this image, at least in the American culture, of women, of this young woman raising her fist to say, yes, I can do it. In fact, it was a propaganda poster in 1942 to encourage women to go to factories to make armaments, because the men were in the front fighting World War II, and they needed people in factories. So, but we forget the real context, and sometimes the image is so strong. And I want just again for fun to show you some of those raised fists propaganda one. This is Chinese propaganda fight against SARS. Imagine SARS being like COVID. And another one, again, I'm learning to do, how do I do that? This is Iranian propaganda. This one is about against fake news. And then this is Cuban propaganda. This one raised hand with a gun to show solidarity with South America. So we have this symbol of action. Designers somehow wants to get involved, but it's not easy. Suddenly they can do it with images. The raised fist is used all the time at the service of what I call social justice. The list is very long and endless list. Illustrators and graphic artists have always created images designed to raise the awareness of social injustice and motivate viewers to get involved. Now, whether the artists themselves, that's very important, the artists themselves were taking direct action wasn't the point. It was thought that idea, when expressed forcefully, are often more powerful ways to promote change. So the artist was not involved directly, but it created images that would do the job. And that has changed. This is what my talk is about. But that image of the raised fist, of the commitment to social justice, could change on the spot if you put in the hand of the fist a paintbrush, a hammer, or a tool, and suddenly you get the feeling that the image means something else. The image means really we can do it. We can make a difference. So this secondary image is a symbol for me of what I will be talking about as toward the end of my talk, about getting actually physically involved. There's a difference between sitting down at your desk and standing up and rolling up your sleeves. So there are two forms of engagement for citizen designer as far as my talk is concerned. This is just a way to try to find some sense. First, use your skill, your wit, your talent to raise awareness of a cause in the name of social justice, or use the design process itself as a tool to help community resolve the issue. And I will show you some celebrated example of, of very powerful images how designers using images, but again, here you see illustration. This is for Tommy Ungerer. I don't know if you know about him. He's a very talented French illustrator that worked in the States. And this was during the Vietnam War. He made probably one of the strongest image, and no one else had the courage to do, which was the American values being shoved down the throat of Vietnamese citizens. He was French, he could get away with it, I guess. But that's where you see at its strongest how a raised hand, a hand can really make a difference. This is another one from Grappus, which is a collective, a French collective, a little bit on the same topic, the peace, the earth's spewing the armaments, and it's a peace, very strong, and again, very courageous symbol of peace, saying, we don't want all that arm race. Yet another of those great posters, which is by, again, Grappus, this French collective, against racism in South America. And yet another one, I'm just showing you sort of the reference point of great graphic images that speak of social issues in a masterful way. This is a photograph by Lou Dorsman of for a television program on the fight for civil rights that takes again this African American with the American flag painted directly on his face, a reference to a tradition of during the civil rights movement of some of the demonstrators painting their face. The face is a place of where you can express and paint your message. This is again a famous Barbara Kruger, famous poster to defend reproductive freedom in women, for women. And this one is fun. I'm sure you heard about the gorilla girl, the guerrilla girl. Gorilla, guerrilla, it was a joke on, it's a play on word. Do women have to be naked to get into the Met? Okay, I'm just showing you all those things because they are classic images that were, in my view, rather successful to talk about social engagement. What was that bump? This is at Buster magazine for Earth Day. At the time, this is maybe a 20 years old image, maybe almost 20 years. That thought that the automotive industry was responsible for the hole in the atmosphere for ruining the Earth. Since then, we've learned that it's actually more complex than that. And this is a very recent image by Milton Glaser, who died recently, and who had created this very personal image around his feeling about the Earth, saying it's not warming, it's dying. And he had created this powerful image. Again, each of those images I just showed you are very personal image done by not artists, but designer artists. And that's an option you have when you want to make a difference, is find images that speak up and express strong idea, but you don't always, oh, excuse me. Okay, sometimes you can't, sometimes you don't have the talent, or you can't hire the talent, and you are just a designer, so there's typography. And typography is a wonderful tool to express idea. Idea can be conveyed through typographical choices. Some font, just like the raised fist is a universal symbol, some font suggest the sense of urgency and crisis and trigger an emotional response. They are basically handwritten scribbles. They are stencil, and also all the family of sans serif in all caps, bold, very condensed, are example of specific typeface associated with social engagement. This poster here by Pierre Bernard, a French designer, that also left us recently. I'm going to show you some classic example because I think we have to have our reference. This is Herb Lubalin, an American designer that did this film poster for the Vietnam War. And what's interesting there is that it's hardly readable. You read "No More War," but you don't really read the other text. It's not meant to be read, but it's meant to be felt. You feel it, you feel the intensity of it. And that's how typography can be used in this field as a presence on the page. That's what's so wonderful about typography, is that it speaks both ways, with words and with emotion. Let me go to the next one. Okay. Yeah, very often, oh, can I go back? Can I go back? Is there a way? Oh yeah, here I can go back. I want to show you those classic logo, if you want. Again, each of them using, or messages using the same all caps typography. It's mostly the current way of talking politics and engagement is to use all caps with black and white. and condense, and with a sort of a, I'm showing you this, promoting this this poster promoting tolerance done by Pentagram, because it's a very well thought out poster, me and we, for tolerance. It's not about me, it's about us, and so on and so forth. But the typeface is incredibly laid back. And imagine if this me and we had been in a condensed typeface, much more condensed typeface, it would have had an urgency. I almost want to take the poster and squish it to wake up, to say, no, it's tolerance is, it's an urgent topic, not a laid back one. I'm going to show you the work of 4 designers who use typography in a different way to deal with social engagement. I'm starting with Pierre Bernard. I showed you some of his work. He was part of a collective called Grappus, and they dealt with mostly left-wing issues. And their style is calligraphy associated with bold scribble and edgy cutout. What was very important philosophically for this group of people was to say that social engagement is joyful. When you are socially engaged and you make a difference and you work for value you believe in, it's a happy, joyful moment. And so they use handwritten not to express anger, but on the contrary, to express joy, which is interesting. You could see this is for Secours Populaire Français, which is an institution, an association to help people who need help. And again, poor people, basically. And c'est parce que la découverte de la précarité, anyway, you see what I mean. It's colorful, it's hopeful, it's a definite, it's a deliberate gesture toward an upbeat version of the fight for social justice. And with a little squiggle and colorful detail. And it's a consistent way, philosophically speaking, of talking about what it is to be responsible and to do the right thing. I'm going to show you a much more modest work of Sébastien Marchal, who is a militant. He's not a graphic designer, but he's one of the few militants who realized that in order to make a difference, they had to have a way to communicate with a coherent graphic image. And he chose this typeface, and he managed to convince his people he was working, he was the other militant he was with, that they needed a corporate, not a corporate, what am I saying? They needed a coherent visual way to be identified, and that typeface would do it. And so he devised this very simple typeface, and he gave it to everybody, and they could create their own poster with whatever talent they had, but you could always see that it was the same group. Nuit Debout was, I don't know if you remember, it was a couple of years ago in Paris, Place de la République. People would spend the night not sleeping and talking about the idealistic way to change the world. Nuit Debout. So I like this project because it stems from the grassroots understanding that you need to make an impact and you need a coherent way to communicate. This is a work of an American artist, Ward Schumaker, who is dedicated anti-Trump citizen action. And what he does is he uses stencil. He has a set of stencil, and he does then with gouache on paper, and he turns quote headlines into memorable aphorism. And he does one a day, and it's on Instagram, and that's the way he's a militant in a way. But what makes it strong and what makes it memorable and what makes it powerful, I think, is done by hand. And it's at that that sensibility of gouache. And of course, he does one a day. And he takes headlines in the newspaper and quotes from Trump and his entourage. And again, it's not terribly readable, but that's not the point. You read a little part of it and you get this sense of urgency, and that's and this relentless desire to be heard and to make issue visible. This is again Walt Schumaker. I'm a fan of Walt Schumaker, so here we go. Vincent Perrottet, a French, definitely a capitalist militant, graphic designer, who used sans serif all caps condensed like all the other designers. It's in the Dean family. I'm sure you heard about Dean. It's the typeface that was developed by the German for their highway system. So it's very readable from a distance, and all the designers who are involved in political action in France anyway use Dean or version of Dean, the Dean family. And this one says, work, if you read the whole thing, you say, work first and you'll have fun after. And then it says, no, have fun first. So it's against the culture of results and work. And I want to show you the work of Vincent Perrottet in the context of street demonstration. You can see a good-looking, clean design poster is very powerful in a crowd. That's one of the things that is interesting, is that when you photograph graphic design in the context, not on the wall, but in a human context, you really understand how it's functioned. What's interesting also here is that Vincent Perrottet always put type over writing. I don't know if you see it, but in the background there's some writing, some text, which of course you can't read. Again, what you can't read is sometimes as important what you can read. And what it means is that stop talking, stop the blah, blah, blah. This is the message. And he's done that. You could see it on this one, which is anti-consumerism, CON for consumerism in French. CON means something like jerk or moron or bonehead, and poor consumer, poor consumer. Again, some example of the work of, very consistent work of Vincent Perrottet. One of the reasons designers, mostly graphic designers involved in political action, use the same typeface is that they buy the typeface. It's quite expensive to buy the whole police, the whole typeface. And then because they don't have that much money, they stick with one typeface because they bought it. And that explains one of the reasons why some designers always use the same typeface, not because they don't have any imagination, because it's an economic reason, I guess. This one said, let me tell you, we built a future on desire, not fear. Again, it is same insistence of some militant to say, being engaged is fun, it's joyful, it's happy, it's about desire, it's not about being afraid. So it's an interesting subtext to some of those graphic exercises. Okay, now I like to switch to designers as active participants. That's a classic thing. It's to do fabulous poster, whether they are done with images, illustration, or typography. And there is this second way of being concerned, which is to be an active participant. And that brings me to the second edition of Citizen Designer, where we chose to do another kind of image, which is a big brush, paintbrush, sloppy paintbrush, because it's an expression of a change, a new paradigm in a way, The citizen designer is no longer a militant, just a militant, is now an active participant to help build a better world, and necessarily repainted the rainbow, the color of rainbows, but at least make, you know, roll up your sleeve and dip your paintbrush in the paint can. This approach is based on the power of the design process itself and its problem-solving strategy. Indeed, I'm sure you heard about design thinking, but after a decade of experimenting with design thinking strategy, designers have acquired a savoir-faire that turns clients or into participants. When applied in the field of social responsibility, it can produce results that have a long-lasting impact on the community, on the communities. I'm going to show you the work of 4 designers who engage their client into the design process with discussion, public debate, interview, hands-on participation, and immersion into the local culture. So as you see, it's a totally different kind. We're still designer. It's a totally different kind of approach. Now we are going to get on the phone, meet people, take interview, ask questions, and be basically no longer sitting down, but now standing up. And I'm going to show you the work of 4 designers, some French and some American and Dutch. Okay, this is a German designer who works in France. Is a public space advocate. He likes to work in the public space to make the public space more interesting, more alive. And he works with communities and different associations and institutions, urban association, community center, and so on, to animate and create events in which people of the community participate to the design process. This is a work he did in the city of Chaumont, where there was a design festival, and he encouraged all the citizens to make their own logo. He gave them elements, and everybody made a logo that represented something they cared about, and the logo were put on a stick, and it was an installation in the middle of town. And it was at the same time a celebration of what it is to make a graphic sign. And so you see, this is different. This is bringing community together, making people feel alive and important and part of a working system, rather than try to just do a poster that would motivate individuals. Malte Martin, this is another installation where, again, not terribly original, you go around the neighborhood and you interview people and you ask their opinion, and you take quotes and you put them on graphic system, and they become, they become part of an installation. But what Malte Martin wanted to tell me when I talked to him about that, is that he spends a lot of time in meetings, a little picture at the bottom, because after you have all the data and all the stories and all the interview, there's a committee, you sit down and you decide which quote is relevant, which one is not, and so on. So when you work in that way, you have to be patient, because you have to sit around the table and sit in endless meeting. But this is part, the meetings and the waiting and the starting again and the calling people on the phone are part of the design process. And that's why I think, in my sense, that's what's new. We don't design just because we have a skill. We designing means also engaging other people and being curators, if you want, of the process. The results are quite interesting. This is Malte Martin still. This is for a project, in a project that was pretty downtrodden, and basically it's again quotes from residents on the theme of "There's no there there." You know, this Gertrude Stein remark about Auckland. Well, that was a thing about je suis ailleurs, ici je suis ailleurs. So that was, again, this is, he used the same typeface Dean, because he bought Dean, and now he uses it all the time because that's a typeface that he bought. He knows how to use it. This is another intervention he did in a project, again, where he gave kids big pieces of paper and glue, and they were gluing it on the wall and making design. Here you see in another part of the same project, working with other residents to make decoration and to make a sign. Femme was seeing, that was the name of the thing, and quite handsome and quite beautiful. He was there helping them with the glue and the thing, and everybody gets involved, and the sensibility of the residents are part of what makes it exciting. Still Malte Martin, this is in Paris, Place des Fêtes, a place that's pretty windswept plaza where no one ever goes, and he decided to make it happen. He was working with a group. Again, it's not a designer by himself. It's a designer teaming up with architects or with all sort of different institutions, and people were engaged. But anyway, what he created there was a kind of a kiosk with polka dots on it, working with different people and volunteer, and eventually creating in the middle of this place, plaza, a center, a neurological center of action and market and sharing and video projection and whatnot, and music, of course. Again, the little pictures of the people sitting around the table, I keep bringing those images because they are so much part of what design is about, sitting down with people and talking with them, which is sort of the new paradigm. This project is from the AIGA New York chapter, and it was actually an initiative, an experiment. Can a design intervention in storm-ravaged neighborhoods of different around New York, remember Hurricane Sandy, help them reclaim their pride and identity? And this was a somewhat of a difficult program because the designer came from Manhattan, and they went to the Bronx and to the Queens and to different part of Coney Island, and they were not prepared for it was a culture shock. As you can see on this picture, they have those lovely posters with quotes from people from the neighborhood next to the bed.
I'm still going to move forward with this deal because I know that my money is safe with this company, and I know we're going to.
What is it? Can I go on?
Make a return on my investment.
Yeah, sorry. I will mute the person.
Okay.
Try to.
Shall I go on? Yeah.
Yes.
This is another image of that process, an example of the quote, let's bring it back to glory, and so on and so forth. And the testimony from the resident became handsome poster that contra. What's happening?
All right, I cannot mute the person because I'm not host. But Samuel Manford, please mute yourself.
Anyway, the question was, is good design a too elitist an approach? In a way, there was a soul-searching project where the designer realized that, good design, as we understand it, was ill-advised, and that maybe there was another action that should have been taken, that the designer could not solve everything. What they did try, they brought all sort of strategy. Here you see kids drawing on the sidewalk. They were stenciling. Again, they were not slogans, they were quotes by people from the neighborhood, resident volunteering to create sidewalk markers. In another completely other neighborhood, they created a pop-up store. Inside the pop-up store, there were an installation, with all the suggestion by a resident. So none of those, the result, the installation are not really original. But what's original is the fact that it's designers that are there to try to animate and create a sense of community thanks to the design process. Two more example, and I'll try to go quickly. This is super terrain, which means field work, and you can see them, the French designer. They go to their client, they pack their car, they put their computer, their drafting table, I don't know what, their yoga mat, and here they go and they work with the local school, neighborhood association, and again, cultural institution to co-design in situ. This is a high school, in a high school. This is in a community center, preparing it was a week-long workshop that ended up with a concert, and they were trying to create motifs that were identified with the music, the musician, and it was the opportunity. The concert was not the result, it was the opportunity to engage people. And of course, this is for the opening of a library in this small town. And again, you can see that once you take the poster outside of the environment, take them outdoor and photograph them, they become really wonderful elements. This was for another opening of a art center in a very blighted neighborhood in the north of France, and they created flags, and they went on the beach and they photographed it, flags and outfits and so on. So again, it's very joyful. It's really designed to make a point that that I will not elaborate. This is we're still with Super Terrain, working in classroom with young people, or going outside in the morning to try to build a scaffolding on which you will put some posters, and being cold and not having coffee, or somebody's going out for coffee or sandwiches. Anyway, all of that is part of it. And then you try to bring the poster, you walk in the street, the poster get caught in the wind, and all of that is part of design. And you goof around and you make postcards, and you know, this is Super Terrain seems to like water towers. Here near water towers, I don't think it's in function yet. The Cité de Chantier, they help create and design a recycling center. And you see them here. They cut they cut the letters out of steel and they are putting them up. So obviously, that's another water tower. And this one is also another kind of recycling center in typography. The last group I want to show you is studio in a studio in Amsterdam that's involved in the interaction between man and machine, in a way, how technology and the human being can interact in a creative way. This is, for example, a parade ground, which is in front of I think what is a former military school. And what they did is that they had people lay down pixels, if you want, that were generated by a computer to represent the different parade movement of parade, but it was done laid down by people. You see people laying it down. So why would people lay down pixel on the parade ground? I don't know, but it was a beautiful kind of a dance, a beautiful installation. And they always do create events where people can explore the human dimension of technology. This is for an event called "What If Google Maps Went Live?" and I advise you to go online and look at it. What they did is that it was for a festival in Amsterdam, in a suburb of Amsterdam. They gave students big perch, student or participant, big perch at the end of which there were cameras. And what they did is that tried to recreate live events and photograph them with those primitive system. It was before drones, I guess. They didn't have drones. And to photograph event, and then they splice it like a patchwork on a map. I'm going to show you, for example, you could see pieces of that. There was a parade. There were people doing yoga. There were a concert hall and a music box and so on. So each square, you see those weird square, was somebody taking a picture of an event, and then they put it together. And it's very awkward and wonderful. And so I think you could go online. We don't know if we can show it to you. This is the kind of object that the Studio Schumaker designed. This is like a weird thing for children to draw. They had done that for this event. So this is time for me to stop talking, but let me just try to come to a conclusion, which is that the role of a responsible designer is to identify which aspect of an issue, and God knows it's so complex. There's so many aspects to every issue. But after a while, a designer would be able to identify which one of this issue, which aspect of this issue can resonate with the public and increase people's desire to engage with it. The design thinking process is just a tool that can guide people to the designer in this quest. So I'm giving you two options: create ideas with a raised hand, and then create a wonderful poster, a wonderful idea, make an idea shine in a way. And the other one is just to roll up your sleeve and follow the design process. This is design thinking, one of the many graphs of design thinking, where you begin with the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And maybe I'm going to show you my last slide, where in a way, what I advise you, whatever is your goal, to create a campaign or to get involved with the community, is to follow the design thinking process, where you choose an issue, and then before you think of designing, you research and contextualize it. You do a lot of research to understand where that issue stands in relationship to other issues and to other urgent debate or whatever. And you spend quite a lot of time doing that. And then you brainstorm. Then you sit around the table with people. Then you talk about it. Then you listen to what they have to say. And only then are you going to make some design proposals. And they are only proposals. That's called prototype. They're only proposals. They are not the final solution. And then you sit down with other people, or you look around and you evaluate the result of this process. And maybe some things are better than others, and you decide to start all over again. That's why it's a wheel. It's start all over again. You realize that maybe the issue that you chose to talk about, to tackle, is you didn't quite understand how complex it was. And maybe you do some new research, and maybe you brainstorm with some new group of people, and so on and so forth. And then you make a new proposal, your new prototype, and then you evaluate the results. So think of it as integrating into your design citizen strategy, if you want, the idea that it's going to be a process rather than a work toward a result. I think I'm going to stop here. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much. So I invite you to unshare your screen, and then there will be a short session of question and answers. And do you hear me?
Yeah, can I
Yeah.
stop share? I should
It's just
stop,
go on the top of your screen and you
stop share.
stop
Okay.
sharing so we can see your beautiful
Okay.
face, and I'm also, you can see me. So the bad side of having this on Zoom is now we're not uploading. I would have liked, so I'm uploading and everyone
Okay,
is
thank you.
uploading. I think, thank you very much for, it was wonderful presentation. I think that now it's time also to have few questions. I don't know exactly how we're going to proceed with that, or you send the question in the chat and I try to ask for you the question, or just raise your hand or unmute yourself and try to step in the conversation if you have a question for Véronique. And eventually I can ask something. You can start, it's always...
Yeah.
So would you say, actually, I have several questions, of course, and in a way you answer to one of my questions at the end with this, just laying down the process that you imagine or you suggest to the students. And starting from that, do you think that the main problem that we encounter as designers right now is the lack of time? Because I have the feeling that we can work on processes and on collective processes and inclusive processes, just if we want to take the time to do it. And as a designer, I feel that it's always this lack of time that we have that push us out of this kind of deep processes.
Many designers, what they do is that they create parallel lab, if you want. Like, for example, Martin would have something called Agraph Mobile, which is a different entity that allows them to do this kind of project. So that you make money, you have a lucrative practice in a way where you do your best to do great design, and then you reserve for yourself a different space, mental space anyway, where you don't work for your company, but you work for your lab or for your other entity, and you take the time because you do that because your life depends on it in a way. It's your commitment, it's your engagement. So you make time. I think that's part of it. That's what I've seen most designers do. And actually, if I may say so, clients love to work with designer. We have a parallel lab and we do research and we take the time to explore issues because clients feel that they have that the designers are going to bring to the table the experience and the reflection that comes from taking the time to explore issues in a different way. But taking the time.
Sorry.
No, I think that it's a very, very good question because it's a question we all have. How can we make the time? And I admire people who do make the time for it.
I think that it's a critical question very often for designers, and I haven't found a solution myself, but that's why I was asking. I don't know if there are other people that want to jump in, or I can ask another question. I have another thing that I want to ask you with as a person with a lot of experience also in teaching.
Somebody on top of the screen
who?
Somebody will raise their hand. I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt, Luc.
Okay.
I can jump in after you.
Yeah.
Hello,
no, go on. I'm very happy to hear other questions.
Okay. Hi, Véronique.
Hello, Jen.
I'm so happy to be here and listen to you. This was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, and this might sound like a strange question, but I'm wondering, since you've been presenting to us many examples, if you do find that there is a cultural difference in handling activism in the content or in the structure of how it is laid out, I'm wondering if you could, yeah, just talk a little bit about that.
Well, you mean between American and French?
Well,
This
for
is,
instance, because
yeah,
as you've been,
European, yeah, European and
yes,
French.
yes, but
Yeah,
maybe.
I know because I am working with Stephen Heller, who is my co-author in that in that book anyway, and he's a very dear friend, and I love him, but he's so American, and I've gone native. I must say, since I came back to France, I've gone native, and suddenly I don't have the same outlook, and I have trouble looking at American design because I find it's all marketing. It's responsible marketing. It's green marketing, but to me, it's still marketing. And I think the big difference to me is what I was trying to talk about: the French, the joyful aspect of being part of of committing yourself or trying to do work that correspond to your values, or you know, this colorful thing, this insistence on having fun, on being happy to be able to contribute to a cause or whatever, rather than seeing the advantage of it. So yeah, there is a big difference, but I think let's be clear, it's also the political and the social structure of the French and system that allows people to have more time and to consider the issue a little less leisurely, a little more leisurely, and not quite with the same outlook. So I don't know if I answer your question. I mumble a bit.
No, I think it's great. I also think it's amazing that you re-become native as you work here in France, and in comparison with your peer. I'm wondering this because apart from the time and the joyful aspect, I'm also wondering if, because we don't have the same, we don't tackle the issues the same way in terms of content. Like, for instance, Black Lives Matter has been, I think, a very specific example of how all of a sudden something that was contextualized to America was spreading further, yeah, and sort of taken over by the French
yeah.
you know, context. And so I'm wondering to you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you think graphic design and the shape, the image of it, can transfer from one community to the next seamlessly, or do you think there needs to be reappropriation along the way?
I think we all share, it's a global culture, let's face it. And when I look at the logo of Black Lives Matters, I see a little bit of Je suis Charlie, you know, and that, you know, we all share the same, in the end, the same DNA in terms of reacting. Like the raised fist is an international symbol. And I think there's kind of the cartouche, the black and white type, all caps, condense, is also an international language, graphic language. And I think we should stick with that and be proud that, in a way, there is a porosity between all sort of different graphic expression of concern, whether it's Black Lives Matters or Je suis Charlie or Greta, about the environment or whatever. So I don't think we need to reappropriate. I think we need to colonize each other. That's what I wish we could do.
Thank you. That's a new concept. I like it.
I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions.
Does anyone else who's want to jump in? Don't be shy. I'm sure that Véronique is very happy to answer to all your questions. I have just another one, but it's more, I was saying, I know that you have a long experience as a teacher also, and one of my questions, because of me being teacher, is how can as instructors and institutions in design teach the students to have this critical thinking and to be able to engage themselves, which is very difficult sometimes, I feel, because we have this double role, that is to make them think, but to make them also to get a job. So do you think that how actually do you think that institutions can help?
I think that inviting atypical speakers, it's a simple way, you know, people that are not, that are going, I remember in school or in some other institution where I would walk into a conference and I understood nothing of what people were talking about, but it was exciting. And I realized I had a lot to learn. So sometimes inviting extraordinary people to talk, even if what they have to talk about is not part of the curriculum and it's strange people. People that make you feel not terribly comfortable, or you don't even understand what they're talking about, but you somehow feel that it's an important topic and you want to find out more about it. It lingers into your subconscious in a way. And then 10 years later, you remember something you heard, or anyway, that's the way it works for me, I think, through encounters. And I think schools can certainly be the place where out of the ordinary people can be invited to come and talk.
Thank you very much.
That's the cheapest way to do it. I don't know. That's what I would do.
Anybody else? Unless we are maybe finishing this talk, that it was just exactly 1 hour. We are perfect in time. So thank you very much, Véronique, for coming for this first Zoom PCA talk. And I would love to have the second part and third part and fourth part of this talk. I think it was, in a way, too short for all the things we could say about it, and that I'm sure you can say about it. And hopefully we will see you maybe around in school, invited, participating in some classes or workshops. And there are some people that are thanking you through the chat, Annie, for example.
Okay.
And so we can stop here and we will stop with the recording. I will thank also to everyone that came here. Caitlin is thanking you, and everyone actually is just chatting and thanking you. And so I hope to see you very soon in Zoom or in real life.
In real life.
Thank you again. It was a wonderful talk. I think that it was very inspiring for sure for me and probably for all the students. I think I will have opportunity to discuss about it with the students in the weeks that are coming. And as the talk is recorded, we will send a link to the community, so those who couldn't be here tonight, they will be able to enjoy this talk in another moment. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.